Everyone, how are you today? It's Michael Gibbs, and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers, and we're here today to help you build your best cloud computing career. Maybe you desire to become a cloud architect or a cloud engineer or a solution architect, an enterprise architect, heck, a network architect. I don't care. I just want to help you build your best technology career. I've been in this technology industry now for a little while, about 25 years now. And I've spent more than 2 decades helping people get their first tech job, get promoted in tech, and truly optimizing their tech careers. And I want you all cloud hired. In fact, I want everyone anywhere in the world that wants a cloud computing job to get it. And I want to help you get it. And that's why I'm here completely free 3 times per week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, answering your cloud computing career questions. So bring in your questions so I can help you build the absolute best cloud computing career. But before we do, let's talk about some free things we have to help you get started, tune, optimize your career, and get to your destinations as far as they may be. No matter how high they are, we can help you get there. So the first thing that I'd like to tell you is that on Thursday this week, we're going to have another of our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. It's a webinar I love doing. People come from all over the world to do these things. We get so many people from so many different places. I will tell you how to transition from your old job to your new job, how to show the hiring manager that your past life is actually relevant to your new job. I will go over exactly what the hiring manager wants so you can be what they want so you can get hired. I'll tell you all the things you need to learn so you can get hired, and I'll even teach you how to bypass HR, go straight to the hiring manager so you can get all, guess what? Cloud hired. And that's why we do everything we do. So join us in the completely free webinar. The link is in the description below as well as the chat box. Now, please follow us on LinkedIn. I've recently written about 20 different magazine articles through magazines all over the world, and we haven't even distributed them that. And we've got so many new videos and so many new books and things, for example, they're going to be coming to you. And we distribute it all on LinkedIn. So follow Go Cloud Careers and me on LinkedIn to be informed of all the new things that we're doing to help you build your cloud computing career, many of which are free. I'm going to tell you, and then very soon, we're going to be releasing a completely free book written by some amazing cloud architects on passing the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam. Looking forward to giving it away completely for free so we can give as much guidance as we can to people all over the world. And we want to make sure we do these things. And of course, if you want your first cloud architect job or your first cloud engineer job, we've got a program for you. We've got a cloud architect career development program to help you get your first cloud architect job. We've got a cloud engineer career development program to help you get your first cloud engineer job. And we've got a tech career accelerator program to get you promoted. Maybe you're a manager and you want to move to director. Maybe you're a cloud engineer and you want to become a cloud engineering manager. We have a tech career accelerator program for that. So bring us your questions so we can help you build the absolute best cloud computing career. Before we do, let me know that you're here by giving me a hashtag cloud hired. Tell me where you're at. I'm in Port St. Lucie, Florida, for example. I know already by looking at some of the names, we've got some people spread throughout the world, but tell me where you're at. Give me a hashtag cloud hired and give me a hashtag for the cloud computing career of your dreams. Because we want to know exactly who you are so we can cater to you, give you the best guidance. And I want you all cloud hired. So bring me some questions while we wait for that. Starting to see some of the cloud hireds come in. That means I know you're awake, alert, and oriented, which we medical people really love, knowing that you're there and fully present. And while we're at it, it's all about determining what you want, letting you know that anybody can do anything they desire in their career with the right plan. Okay, I'm seeing where some of you guys are at already. I'm loving this. Shoot for the stars. Hey, Mike, cloud hired. Shoot for the stars. I am so happy to see you today. I see you a lot. You always have some very interesting questions. Hi, Mike. Ofukura, Anselm, good to see you today. Hello, Chris. Good to see you, Anselm. I think you're in Cameroon right now, if I remember correctly, which I love. Hakeem, how does one get over imposter syndrome? Hakeem, that is a really, really great question. And, you know, there's 2 sides of imposter syndrome. So let's talk about normal imposter syndrome and then pathological imposter syndrome. Most people at some point in their career will experience imposter syndrome, and this is a good thing. The people that experience imposter syndrome are typically the ones that have the highest performing careers, and here's the reason why. See, right now, we've got a couple parts of our mind: the conscious, the unconscious, and the subconscious. The conscious mind is thinking, I want ice cream. I'm a cloud architect. BGP works this way. I'm happy. I'm sad. These are the things that are in the conscious mind. The unconscious mind, we don't even know what's going on in it, but there's things. And the subconscious is kind of this weird part of the brain. The subconscious, in many cases, is the secret to success. Now let's talk about why that is, and then we'll talk about why it can hurt you and help you, and why, in this case, imposter syndrome, it's helping you until it becomes pathological. So here's the subconscious. If you ever have, for parents can tell you this, they look at their child. Their child doesn't have a fever. Their child's not bleeding, but they know their child is sick because they're seeing something and they don't know what it is, but they know their child is not sick. They know their child is sick. You'll see a warrior walk down the street and say, uh-oh, we're in danger. We got to get out of here. Quite frankly, I've been in that situation. And why? There's nothing out there that looks obvious, but something just doesn't feel right. I was a paramedic and a nurse, and I was trained to be a nurse practitioner. And a nurse practitioner said, we're going to weigh this patient because we have to make sure that they don't have CHF. And I said, we can't weigh them. And she said, we have to weigh them. And I said, if you weigh the person, they will die. Well, I was a student. They were not. They picked up the person. Their heart stopped. I resuscitated them when they hit the ground. What's going on is the subconscious is aware of everything. So Hakeem, when we start our career, and we know what we know, and we know other things that we don't know, chances are we have imposter syndrome because we realize, wow, there's so much to learn. And Hakeem, that's okay. There will always be so much to learn. But the first stage of imposter syndrome is when we're concerned about our competency. So we have to determine out if it's a valid concern or if it's pathological. And here's the thing. I'll give you what I did, Hakeem. So Hakeem, when I transitioned from medicine to tech, the first thing that I did was I did what everybody did. I got 6 certifications, which is silly and irrelevant. So I did Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, Microsoft Certified Professional, CCNA, CCNP, CCDP, CCDA, and I had 6 certifications and nobody cared. And then I called a bunch of recruiters and found out what hiring managers wanted, and I learned all those things. And then poof, I went on my first interview and I got hired. I had applied for a network engineer job and poof, I got hired for a senior network engineer job because I knew what the hiring manager wanted. And then I said to my wife when I got home, I said, now I'm a senior network engineer and I've never worked in networking in my life. What do I do? Now, I had a case of imposter syndrome like you can't even imagine. It was so bad that I was nauseous. I was choking. I had butterflies in my stomach. I couldn't sleep at all. I was up all night staring at the ceiling, saying, what happens if somebody asks me a question? And I don't know. So Hakeem, here's what I did. Now, we're going back like 25 years ago. I wasn't a wealthy person, so I remember what I did. I told my wife we're getting a new credit card, and she says, Mike, why are you getting a new credit card? I said, I need to make sure that everybody loves me before they figure out how dumb I am. And she laughs hysterically, and she says, you're a genius. And I said, look, here's the thing. I don't know what I don't even know. So I got to get better. So what I did was I got a new credit card, and I read 1,000 pages a day, Hakeem, every day for 6 months straight. 6 months later, I passed what I consider my introductory networking exam, which was the CCIE. And interestingly enough, around then, my imposter syndrome went away. Now, I'm going to tell you the CCIE is my intro to networking because after that, that's when the real learning began. When I got to be on projects that were so big and so complimented, I went, whoa, that's where I got to learn. And 25 years later, the learning has never stopped. So the secret to getting imposter syndrome is to realize that you need to know more. How do you do that? You read more. You read RFCs. You read the vendor's documentation. You do the studying. You do the learning. Ideally, you're attending my classes. And after about 6 months to a year, guess what? You won't have imposter syndrome. You're going to know what you're doing, and you'll be competent. But the imposter syndrome comes first. Now, where does the imposter syndrome become pathological or a sickness? When you have somebody that's considered the world's best expert, and they've got 20-some years experience, 25, 30, and they have imposter syndrome, that's a problem. Those people need to see a qualified mental health practitioner because there's something wrong. There's some underlying anxiety disorder, some underlying depression. the person doesn't have sufficient self-confidence. So keep that. So Hakeem, what do you do in the beginning, and you're in the beginning of your career? Study, study, study. In fact, you have access to my courses, so what I would do is I'd go back and watch the 1.5 years worth of classes. You have access to like probably 1,500 hours worth of training. I'd watch it all. I'd read all the required reading, the recommended reading, and all those other things. So keep that in the back of your mind. So there's there. But also, make sure you do not compare yourself to others, because we're all different. We are all different. If you're going to say, hey, this person knows this and I know this, that's going to make you nuts, because it's going to set unrealistic expectations in your head. But Hakeem, here's the thing. We're not all the same. We all have different strengths and different weaknesses. So here's why we have to understand this and what's critical. If you want to be great at your job, just study for your job, but we can all do the job differently. This morning, I was speaking to one of our graduates who's now working as a cloud architect, and he's really, really good, real good. And he was working in a cloud architect world, and he says to me, I finally feel good. I said, what happened? He said, well, you trained me. He said, I knew I was good enough. I had three offers. I accepted one of them, but I still, in my heart, didn't feel good enough. He said, the other day, I closed a pretty big deal. He said, today I worked, and guess what I found? He said, we had some engineers, and they were talking, and I finally had to say to them, thank you for your input. I'll take it from here. Because what happened is the engineers went and talked in front of an executive for about 15 minutes straight about tech. The executives were ready to enter the mirror, and he stopped it, and he summarized it in 4 minutes or 4 sentences. And I love engineers. They're super smart. But he summarized it in 4 sentences and then got another purchase order. And he went back to his manager's like, you're my hero. I was wondering how you were going to deal with the tech in front of the executives, because executives don't want to hear tech, and he handled it perfectly. I will tell you, I train people, and over time, it will go away. So Hakeem, these are the only people that I know that don't get imposter syndrome. The people that don't even know what they don't know. So for example, there's some certification providers. There's one of them in particular who's out there every day saying, I'm a solo content creator. Share my message. I'm releasing an AWS security exam. But he's not a security architect, knows nothing of security, but now he's got new security training. He will have imposter syndrome, or he's a sicko, in which case then he won't have imposter syndrome because he doesn't care. So you will run into people that don't have imposter syndrome that'll tell you, I'm an expert. How are you an expert? I watched a 3-minute YouTube video, and they think they're an expert, but they don't know what they don't know. But good people, Hakeem, good ones who care about the quality of the work they deliver will get imposter syndrome. So don't worry about it. Hakeem, I actually know you. You're very strong, very solid, and terrific. Just keep practicing, keep practicing, keep practicing. And 6 months from now, when you're working as a cloud architect, 8 months from now, whatever it is, because we don't rush you. I just want you hired, and I want you to have a good life and a great career. You'll be so solid. Guess what? You won't have imposter syndrome. You'll be confident. The world will be coming to you, and you'll be training the new set of people that have imposter syndrome and making them great. And Hakeem, you're going to love it. I've got a lot of faith in you. I expect big things from you. We'll get you soon cloud hired, Hakeem, and you'll be cloud great too. Lots of faith in you. Chris, we can go to the next one. Collins, it's good to see you today, cloud hired. And I know you're in Houston, Texas. That's fantastic. It's great seeing you on YouTube versus Twitch. MBWA Lambert, cloud hired is always wonderful seeing you. I know you were cloud hired after watching a ton of our YouTube videos. I know now you're our student and doing bigger and better things in life, and I'm so excited for you. Cloud hired Lambert. Soro S, what is easier as a beginner in IT, AWS or Ccna? Soro S, you're asking a question, and I think you're answering the completely wrong question. You're asking me what is the easiest. I'm going to tell you this right now, Soro. Nothing good in life is easiest. Nothing. Zero. So I will always ask you, what is your goal? What are your dreams? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, it's a 500-page book. The Ccna is a 2,000 pages of reading materials. The AWS stuff is nothing compared to the complexity of networking. But here's the thing, Soro. If you don't understand networking, you don't know the cloud anyway. You could have 1,000,001 cloud certifications, and you don't know anything, because the cloud is nothing more than a network and a data center. So Soro S, I ask you this question. What is your goal in life? What is your dreams? What do you desire to be? What would you like to do? That's how you determine it. I was a Confucius that said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Look, you're going to spend your whole life working, whole life. And it's not what's the easiest thing to do. It's what's going to make you happy. You don't want to be like me, Sorrel S. I learned to practice medicine. I had my own internal medicine office and I went, whoa, this is not for me. So I became what I wanted to be and I switched over to tech 25 years ago. Now, it was hard learning internal medicine. That was 7 years of a lot of work, a lot of studying, but it didn't make me happy. So what did I do? I picked the hardest certification in the world, the Ccic, and did it. Back when it was a challenging exam, not now, it's much easier. Now it's pretty easy, but in those days it was a 2-day exam. They had to make it a 1-day exam because the failure rate was so high. When I started, there were about 3 million people that had attempted to reach that level, and my number was 7417, but they started counting at 1028, so I was like the 65th 100 person to pass. Challenge yourself. Go achieve something big. It's not about what's easiest. It's about what's going to make you happy. Here's something else. Let's talk about supply and demand curve, Sorrow. Let's talk supply and demand and macroeconomics. If there's a large supply and the demand is even, guess what? The price or salaries of the people are low. If there's a low supply and a critical demand, the salaries are sky high. So if you take the path that everybody else takes, you're going to be ensuring a low paying, low salary, low mobility career. And if you choose the harder path, which you can do with the right effort, attitude, energy, enthusiasm, you can have an elite career, which will pay you far more and make you happier. So again, what would you like to do? It doesn't matter that you're a beginner. Let's face it, this year, Daniel Boso, love the kid. I almost wish he was my own son. Didn't even graduate high school, and he's now working as a cloud architect. Daniel Delray Bat, I spoke to him again this morning. He's like a child of mine, and really great cloud security architect. We trained him. He was an EMT before we met him. Balwinder, who's now working at Microsoft, who's an incredible cloud architect, was a stay-at-home mom and doing homeschooling for the last 8 years. And was working in customer service in retail at Amazon, not the AWS, but retail. And now she's working as a cloud architect. Jeffrey West, great cloud architect, was doing geospatial imaging. Yvonne, who I'm going to bring on the show someday soon again, he was a college student that was serving food, who's now working for AWS, Coyote 2. I could go on and give you hundreds of people. And they all did it with our training. But the point is, you can do anything you want. There's no rules that say you can't be the future president, the future cloud architect, the future anything. So be what you want to be. Be what you want to be. And you can do it. So please tell me what you like, and I'd like to build you a path. But it's never about what's easiest. It's always about what's best, what gives you the most opportunity, and what gives you the most happiness. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't try. So we can all do it, every one of you. And it's never about the easiest. It's about the best. Find out what's going to make you happy and build the career of your dreams. I want you to have everything, so that's why I say this. Chris, let's go to the next one. And Sora, please tell us what you want, and then I can tell you how to get there, and that way you can have a magical life. On Thursday, I see the banners up, so please join us on the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. We'll tell you everything you need to know to get your first cloud architect job. Hakeem, cloud hired. Yes, Hakeem, cloud hired. Farah, cloud hired. Absolutely. Shoot for the stars. Any advice for someone trying to decide whether they should transition to a cloud career from an unrelated field? What things to consider when reviewing the cloud careers? Great question there, Shoot for the stars. The key to determine is, what do you like to do? That's it. What do you like to do? Do you want to be an astronaut? Well, that's going to be statistically improbable, but at least become a pilot first. Join the military if you wanted to be an astronaut. Chances are that's going to help. But no, the reality is we can do anything. So my advice is as follows. Find a mentor, a tech mentor. And here's the thing. That mentor or coach must be in the industry and successful industry with the job you want. And for at least 10 years, you want an expert. You want someone that's been promoted and has reached the highest level, and here's why. They're the ones that know the successful path. So one thing that I can tell you the difference between high net worth individuals and lower net worth individuals is where they get their advice. Statistically speaking, high net worth individuals get the advice from people that know more than them. And that's how they became high net worth individuals. They build a network of people in high positions. They ask questions, they get guidance, they get leadership, they follow their successful advice, and they become successful themselves. Less successful people don't know where to get the advice. So they zigzag in their career and they're kind of all over the place. And it's kind of sad because many of these people are really smart. For example, recently someone said, I want to be a cloud architect, and a software engineer told me this is what I should do. And my response is, a software engineer doesn't know cloud architecture. Why would you ask them? And then recently I've been noticing that maintenance people or sysops people are advising people to be cloud architects. Guess what? They don't know what a cloud architect is either. I've seen cloud engineers advise people to be a cloud architect. And guess what? They don't know what a cloud architect either. The only people that know what a cloud architect is someone that's working as a cloud architect. And here's the thing. The person that's been in the same job for 4 years and didn't get a promotion, that's not someone you want to ask questions for, because the fact that they haven't been promoted in 4 years, chances are means they're not doing something right. So that's how you do it. So first, determine what you like. And then find a coach. And then determine what are the exact things that you need to know for your career. The top 5, 10 most important. The most important ones. And here's the thing with every career. There's nice to haves, and critical. Learn the critical. Now that's the biggest secret. 99% of the people that I get have been learning every other skill other than the one for the job. There's some certification providers that have told people, hey, if you want to be an architect, learn development, learn Linux, learn sysops, learn DevOps, and you know what's going to happen? These people are going to waste their time, waste their money on these stupid trainings that are not related to their career. A year later, they're going to rack up 6 certifications, and they're going to come to me and say, Mike, no one's willing to hire me. It's because I have lack of experience. And I'm going to say, there's nothing to do with your lack of experience. You've had 10 interviews, and people wouldn't interview you if they didn't think you were okay. It has to do that you don't know the job, which is design, present, and sell. You know everybody else's job instead of your job. And that's the biggest problem we have in tech, is people don't learn their job. They think a certification is training, and it's not. No one's going to get hired from a certification ever. The CCIE, maybe. That all these cloud certifications, they're silly easy, and they don't teach you any of these jobs that matter. So that's the key. The key is set your mind, set your intention, and know you can do it. Then find a coach or a mentor, even if it's a group coach or mentoring like ours. Find a mentor. Then have that mentor tell you the most critical skills for your job. Then master those most critical skills for your job. Then with that mentor or that coach, present these things to that coach, mentor, or their program and see if you're doing it right. And if you're doing it right and you know the job and then you can do the job, that's when you start working on building your brand. Get a coach to help with your resume. Get a coach to help with your LinkedIn profile. Get a coach to teach you how to speak the right way, walk the right way, talk the right way, develop the right business skills, critical skills. Then go out there and get hired. So when it's like planning a battle, planning a mission, planning a trip, planning a business, you got to build a plan. It's your get hired plan. And your get hired plan has a starting point, an end point, which involves you getting cloud hired. And for each thing that you need to learn, you need to break that plan into manageable steps. Each step should be a specific, measurable, achievable, results-oriented, and time-based goal. Knock out one goal, party time, celebrate. Knock out the next goal, party time, celebrate. Knock out the next goal, party time, and celebrate. And guess what? When you're cloud hired, party time and celebrate. Now, when you're hired, work on being the best in the world and get promoted. That's what I recommend. Shoot for the stars. That's exactly what I would do. That's exactly what I did. That's exactly what my most successful people over the last 20 years have done. Hi, Tracy. How are you? Cruz Martinez, does our course offer engineering concepts? Well, it depends which course. Cloud architects and cloud engineers might as well be like parrots and cats. So different from each other. Our cloud engineering course teaches cloud engineering. Our cloud architect course teaches cloud architects. And here's the reason why. Nobody hires cloud engineers to be cloud architects. So we teach what's necessary for the job. In our cloud architect program, we teach cloud architecture. In our cloud engineering program, we teach cloud engineering. And here's why. There's only a limited amount of time in the day. There's only a limited amount of time in your life. And here's the thing. If you want to be an airplane pilot, take off, land, fly, go straight, flying a plane's great. Here's the thing. Don't become a flight attendant and don't become an airline mechanic. It will not teach you how to fly the plane. Now, if I teach my architects, engineers, they're going to be so busy focusing on engineering, guess what they won't know how to do? Be an architect. Likewise, if I train my engineers in cloud architecture, which is 50% executive stuff, guess what they won't know how to be? A cloud engineer. So Cruz, of course, our cloud engineering program, it's all dominated by how to be the world's greatest cloud engineer. And what's our cloud architect program based on? How to be the world's greatest cloud architect. Our courses are very specific. We don't do what I call generic, almost like liberal arts education. We'll learn a little of this, a little of this, a little of this, a little of this, a little of this. And when you're done school, after spending $150,000 at a liberal arts school, guess what? No one's willing to hire you and you end up working at a fast food restaurant. I don't do that. We train our people in exactly the skills for their job. We get them great at their job. We don't worry about being good at somebody else's job because there's other people that do that job. And then we get our people hired. So engineers, we teach engineering. Architecture, we teach architects. That's what, and that's why we named our courses, because they're based upon our career. I don't waste people's time. I don't teach them things that they don't need to know. I mean, sure, in our architect program, there are some engineering projects like designing and building your own cloud and dealing with some of the tech. So we do get hands-on in our architecture course, even though architects never touch the tech. They just design, present it, and sell it. But still, here's the thing. We do some of it. But the key is we train the people for their career. The biggest challenges I see in tech is people learn everybody else's career, not their own. And I got to tell you, it's life-changing when you master your career. How life-changing is it? When I had 6 months experience, I had a job where they wanted 15 years of experience. And when I had a year's experience, I was a principal consulting architect with one of the largest tech vendors in the world. And that's the thing. Why? All I knew was my job. Only my job and nobody else's job. When those other network engineers and architects were learning wireless and voice and security, I was focused on mine, routing, which was my job. So, Cruz, great question. Architect course teaches you how to be an architect. Engineer course teaches you how to be an engineer. Great question. Chris, go to the next one and ask us your questions in the chat box. That's why I'm here, to help you build your best career. Rakesh, hi Mike, I'm CCIP certified. Can I go directly to the Advanced Network Specialist certification, or do I have to go through the Solution Architect? So Rakesh, you're CCNP certified. I don't know if you know networking by that, because I just don't know. Because I know lots of CCNPs that know nothing of networking, and I know people with 0 certifications that are great at networking. So here's the thing. Do you know networking? And what is your networking knowledge? If your networking knowledge is configuration, int G0/0, IP A/DR, 192.168, 1.1, 255, 252, no shut, router OSPF1, network 10.0.0.0, 0.0.0.3, area 0, that's configuration. You need a heck of a lot of training to do any kind of networking thing, because that's network admin work. Now, if you know how to tune BGP and you're thinking about, how do I load share across these links, for example, then you know networking. If, for example, you're planning complicated routing, designing the IP addressing scheme for a business with 50,000 remote locations, then you know networking. Now, here's the thing, Rakesh, if you know networking, do not waste your time with the AWS Advanced Networking thing. It isn't even an intro to 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 an intro of a CCNA. It is the silliest, most ridiculous certification I've ever seen in my life. I teach it sometimes, and the reason I teach it is as follows. For people that are pre-CCNA, I think it's a great introduction to networking. It's better than, say, a Network Plus from CompTIA. But otherwise, the AWS Advanced Networking would be kind of worthless. But we use it as different. We take the AWS Advanced Networking, we teach it, which has no networking in it at all whatsoever. And then we add BGP, we add IP addressing, we add subnetting, supernetting, route aggregation. We add switching concepts into it. We add heavy-duty NAT concepts into it. We add some network architecture concepts into it when we teach it, and then it's a valuable course. So we just use it because people want to get a certification. So we give them what they need to pass the certification, and then we teach them something. But Rakesh, if you're actually a knowledgeable network person, you could spend about 15 minutes with a practice exam and then pass that exam and not even realize you did it. It's that basic. I mean, it's just so basic. So if I was a CCNP, I wouldn't waste my time with it at all. Not at all. Now, I might consider getting an AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, and that way I'd show that I have some cloud something, along with your CCNP, which is a strong certification. So that might be something I would do, but I'll tell you one thing that I would not do: waste my time on the AWS Advanced Networking. Now, if you'd like to take our AWS Advanced Networking, if you don't know how to design things in BGP, and your switching knowledge is questionable, and your spanning tree knowledge is questionable, and your port channel, ether channel, HSRP, VRRP, link aggregation group stuff is questionable, your NAT knowledge is questionable, we'll teach that in our course, but it is not covered in the AWS Advanced Networking. So you'd be much better off not wasting your time with any of the intro things, just doing the basic introductory level AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. If you're a CCNP and you truly know networking for real, and you're not just paper certified, you can knock that out in about 2 weeks because it's a basic exam. Look, the CCNP is about 10,000 pages of reading, and the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional is about 500. So it's literally nothing. So that would be the way that I would do something like that. I would just knock it out. And that's really the key. So yes, you've got already far. Well, I don't know. Certification means nothing because you could have just got a practice test, mugged up a bunch of questions and answers, memorized it, whatever you call it, and then passed the exam. So I don't go by certifications. But if you have the real knowledge that's contained in that CCNP with regards to BGP, OSPF, ERGRP, route summarization, route aggregation, route redistribution, NAT switching, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, cloud connectivity, when to use private lines versus software-defined networking versus SASE versus Ethernet over MPLS versus SSL VPNs versus IPsec VPNs. If you've got that knowledge, you're already here, and the AWS Advanced Networking is like down here. So don't waste your time with it at all. But it would be good to round out your thing with, say, an AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, and that signifies intro to cloud knowledge in our mind. The Certified Solutions Architect Professional is very junior. But to us, people think it's a lot because they don't understand how much knowledge is really needed for tech careers. But I'd say you're already way above it. Don't waste your time with it. In fact, when people tell us what to do, they say, when I be a cloud network engineer or a cloud network architect, we're like, get that Certified Solution Architect Professional, get the CCNP or the CCIE. Don't waste your time with this silly business. Now, there is a good exam. It's becoming more popular. Aviatrix has a network engineer professional, not the associate. Don't waste your time with associates because you're already past that. That one is becoming something good. It's not there yet where I would recommend it potentially 6 months from now or a year from now, because that's an excellent SASE solution for managed WAN and managed security that I kind of do like. So that would be something to consider in the future. But you'd be better off getting a cloud certification and not wasting your time on an intro to networking certification, because you've already got a better networking certification right now. Great question, Rakesh. But you didn't tell me which career you like. And if you're interested in which career, I'll tell you what to do. Because you got to remember, architecture careers are not careers where certification is going to get you a job. And here's the reason. Certifications teach you the name of a service and how to configure that. But architects don't configure. We design, present, and sell. So tell me what your goal is, and we can take you from there. MBWA Lambert, as a cloud security architect, would your career path be as follows? AWS, SA, AP, and then CISSP. How long does CISSP take? Does CISSP include labs, and are they covered in the course? MBWA Lambert, you're asking career path, and you're listing certifications. Certifications here, career path here. So completely opposite things. Now, if you're asking which certifications would be beneficial, I would say the Certified Solution Architect Associate, the Professional, and the CISSP. How long would it take you to pass the CISSP? I don't know. I did it in 5 days. In fact, when I was at Cisco, they sent 5,000 of us for CISSP training, and 5 days later, we were all CISSP certified. And it was a nothing exam. But, here's the thing. How long does it take? How long does it take for you? So I've trained some students as part of our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, and the ones that are in our program, I will tell you, one of them passed it in a couple of weeks, and she says to me, "Oh my God, Mike, I bought the CISSP book directly from the source, and everything that's in it you taught us in class." No, the CISSP doesn't have labs, and here's the reason why. Architects don't touch technology, ever. And the CISSP exam is a security architect exam. It's about how do you design a security policy? What kind of training needs to be done to your end users? How do you work around social engineering? How do you work around phishing campaigns? The type of bad actors that exist, the type of threats that exist. How do you design a plan to mitigate around it? So when you, and I know you're one of our students, so when you actually think about the people that take a CISSP, I've seen attorneys, or which are otherwise known as lawyers, take it because they're dealing with high security environments and they like it. I've seen business executives take it, and I've seen technology professionals take it. And here's the thing. It's an architect type exam. It talks about the design. And here's the thing. Architects don't touch tech. So we're not going to be, so that's why the CISSP doesn't have labs in it, because it's not there. Now, if you were going to do a CCNP security, that would be based on how do you use Cisco firewalls, Cisco IDS IPS systems, Cisco this kind of stuff. That would be labs. And what is a regular certification about? It's about learning a vendor's technology and how to configure it. That's what's wrong with all the certifications for architects. It's everything right for the admin people, but it's everything wrong for architects. And here's the reason. We architects design, present, and sell. So no, you will not be doing labs there, because that's not what architects do. So when you go to the ISC squared and you do a CCIE, there's not going to be labs for you to do, because they know that's not your job. And that's why MBUWA, it's an expensive exam, because this is an exam that means something on your resume. It's not like an AWS exam that you get 10 of them, and in the end, unless you get special training, nobody cares. This one actually matters. This is a good certification. Now, it's not enough to get a job on its own. Let's be fair, no certification is. But the CISSP has extremely good concepts. Extremely good concepts. And because of that, it's going to be incredibly helpful for you. Incredibly. So we cover, I'd say, 80% of the CISSP curriculum with all of our students. Why? Because I view the CISSP as kind of the intro-level security knowledge that everybody needs to know. It's just so basic. And when we really look at today's world and we look at the cloud, what is the cloud? It's an outsourced network in a data center. Outsourced. Now, when we start thinking about an outsourced network in a data center, what do we have? The same problems that we have in any other network and data center, which is networking, compute, storage, applications, and security. Same thing as anything else. So because of that, yeah, CISSP is a good certification. How long it takes is dependent upon you. How fast do you read? How fast do you learn? But don't rush it. Don't rush it. There's two ways you could do the certification. There's what most people do, which is they take some silly Udemy course, which teaches them nothing. And when they get really bored and they don't know anything, the next thing they do is buy a practice test, memorize questions and answers, and poof, they're certified. Now, that works, but there's no learning there. The alternative way is kind of the way I went through my MBA program. Let's say you're doing the CISSP curriculum. And look, maybe it's a 1,000-page book, nothing. It's no big deal. Now, when you read that book, there's going to be a lot of stuff that they talk about in such high level that you won't understand what it means. Like you'll look at it and say, I sort of get it. Then what you should do is you should go out there and you should do that research. So while you go through this 1,000-page book, which is enough to pass the CISSP, easily, turn that 1,000 pages of book into a 10,000 pages of reading and really learn security, get good at it. Learn the essential security concepts, get the depth, start learning more about zero trust and how to make it work and all the pieces and parts. Start learning what the security vendors do and how their solutions get put together. Start learning how the pieces and parts get added together. Because what's architecture? Architecture is not about touch and tech. It's not about configuring tech. It's taking these little things and individual components, putting them together in a way where the solution is greater than the sum of its parts. Whether you call it synergy, architecture, it's all about making something that solves business problems. You do that, wow, you'll be good. So your career path will be learn the cloud, learn the network, start working, and then learn the security and be a cloud security architect. Or you be like Delroy Batt, one of my great students. What did he do? He learned security and got his first cloud security architect job with us. Either approach is good, but realize it's not coming in the certifications. All the certifications point is there's only one point in certifications. No certification will ever get anybody hired ever. Never. No certification except the CCI is enough to get somebody hired ever. But a certification creates what's called fake illusions of competency, which is just enough to get you an interview. So we want that CISSP certification to get you that interview. And then the stuff we're going to teach you, because you're our student and I already know how great you are, that's going to get you the job. That's it, not the certification. So do that, you're going to be smooth. And I know you. And I knew you before you got hired. Now I know you that you're a student. You're doing great. Ask us some questions in the chat box so we can truly help you build the best cloud computing career. Hakeem, you're incredible, Mike. Thank you for everything you do. Hakeem, you're fantastic. I remember you watched this for a little while. I now see you in classes. I know you're in classes and you're doing great. We're honored to be working with you, and I can't wait until you're cloud hired. Avi Pull, how to learn towards AWS Cloud Consultant as an architect, now in the cloud governance team with 3 years experience in the cloud. So I'm not really sure I understand your question, Avi, because in many cases, an architect is a consultant. So I don't know what you know and don't what you don't know. But if you want to become an architect, here's what you're going to have to learn. You have to understand that an architect is not an engineer. It's a consultant. So being an architect really needs 50% consulting skills, like management consulting skills, and 50% technical skills. So let's talk about the business skills first and the technical second. Now, Avi, and I don't know if that's Avraham, if it is Shalom, if that's something else, it's nice to see you as well. So when we're dealing with the architect piece, we have to remember that 50 to 60% of the job is the executive component. So what does that mean? Our job as an architect is what's called digital transformation. Where people employ us for the following reason. So that they can bring us into the business, we can evaluate the business, we can determine how to make that business more efficient, more profitable, via increased revenue, employees more productive so they can do more with less, reducing costs. There's some business reason that they're hiring us. So for this, first, our business skills get us, because all we know is tech, we can't transform the business and we can't do the job. We could be a cloud engineer, but not an architect. An architect's an executive. So this must mean you need the following: high levels of business acumen, the ability to read a balance sheet, the ability to read a financial statement, the ability to make recommendations, the ability to evaluate an organization's capital structure to make recommendations, whether a capital purchase or an operational purchase, is better. I mean, these are just some of the minimal kind of things. We need to understand how to increase top line revenue. We need to understand how to reduce cost of goods sold, and the technology can do this. So we need to understand how to reduce error defects, improve supply chains. That's critical architect knowledge. What's not? DevOps, SysOps, coding, configuring. That's not what architects do. But that is critical. You cannot do the job without that. Now, next, we're going to be interviewing the CEO, the CFO, the CIO, the CTO. So we need what's called CXO relevancy. Today, one of my architects went into a meeting. An engineer was talking tech. He had to say, stop talking in a polite manner, took it over and closed the deal. So you've got to be CXO relevant. You need good leadership skills, because what's going to happen is you're going to meet with a client, Avi, and you're going to go back to your team and say, architecture is a team sport. And you're going to go to your company, and then you're going to reach out to the executives of your company and say, I need 50 people for the next 6 months to work on this project. Now, the 50 people you need are probably $200,000 employees, fully loaded salaries. So you're going to have to build a justification why you need that. you may have to go to the CEO, the EVPs, the SVPs, and build a business case to why you need the people. Now, when those people start working with you on proof of concept, they don't report to you, they report to somebody else. So now you got to manage people that are not your employees. Whoa, really matrix management, heavy duty. Levels of leadership skills there. Now, next, you're going to be delivering presentations to executive conferences, and audiences of potentially 5,000 plus people. So you're going to need extremely good presentation skills. Now, you're going to have to learn how to write. And that writing was the following. The writing includes executive writing, engineering writing, as well as management level writing. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Now, keep going on the stack up. So you're going to have to build a business case, an ROI model. You're going to have to learn how to sell. And you're going to have to negotiate big deals. At minimum, those are the essential skills. Because remember, the architect's kind of like a salesperson in a lab coat, meaning a hybrid scientist versus sales rep versus strategy consultant. Now, on the cloud side, nothing in certifications is ever going to work because it doesn't cover what you need. Certifications teach you the name of a service, which we can't use in most cases because it's proprietary, as well as how to configure that silly proprietary service, which we're probably not even going to use half of the time. So things like DynamoDB, there's no use for it. Why is there no use for it? Because in a two-cloud environment, it's not like it can run Google Cloud Bigtable and DynamoDB and exchange information. It's not going to work. So in a multi-cloud environment, which is 87% of customers, I can't use those silly services. Now I could use a MongoDB or an Apache Cassandra, which we design it, present it, and sell it. So what do you need to know? Well, what do we do, Avi? We take the stuff from the physical network and data center, that stuff, and we migrate it to the virtual data center called the cloud. And all clouds are nothing. Okay, I'm on a different internet connection right now, so hopefully everything works fine. I have 3 of them connected to 3 internet service providers, and when one goes down or tweaks or gets some packet loss, BGP goes to the next one. So now that we're talking about this, let's go to the following. Let's go to the technical skills. So what's BGP? Now, as an architect, you're going to be dealing with IP addressing, subnetting, supernetting, route aggregation, so you must understand that. Why? If you don't truly understand that, the whole thing will come to collapse because the house needs a solid foundation, and the solid foundation for the cloud, the network, and the data center is the IP addressing part. Now, next, you're going to have to learn WAN technologies, Avi, which include SSL-based VPNs, IPsec-based VPNs, private lines, Ethernet over MPLS, software-defined networking, and Ccic. And that's incredibly something to do this. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And I got some incredibly news. Okay, for 1 second, let's. Okay, well, let me finish this before I go to Robert Welch, who makes me very, very exciting. So let me keep finishing. Let me keep finishing this. So next thing that we want to talk about, is NAT. You need to know one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, PAT, because those are going to be the things that you kind of need to look at. What else do you need to know on top of that? You will need to know switching, which means VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, and all of those other things that are pretty incredible, which are related to the networking side. So then you will need to learn DNS, DHCP, ARP, proxy ARP. And again, 99% of this is not covered in any AWS certification, but you need to know it. Now, next, what do you need to know? Servers and server virtualization and containers and container orchestration, block storage, object storage, file storage, and all of these kinds of things. Keep that in the back of your mind. Next, you will need to know databases, relational databases, know SQL databases, how to tune them, how to scan them. What else will you need to understand? Business applications such as CRM applications, ERP applications, and those types of things, because those are the tools that you're going to use to improve business performance. Then you will need to understand security things, which include IDS, IPS systems, VPN concentrators, next generation firewalls, and all of those kind of things. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So again, all that's going to be good stuff too. So kind of keep these in the back of your mind. I would keep that. Those are the things that you need to learn. Most are not covered. So that's what you need to do. You need to transition to somebody that knows 50% tech, 50% executive, that can design a solution to solve a customer's problem. It's not the kind of thing where certification is going to get you there. You're going to need architect training. Because an architect career pays as much as a doctor or a lawyer, and there's a special set of skills. So we could happily train you. Or if you've got enough business acumen, you can learn those technical things we told you and be okay. But understand it's not a certification job. So Avi, I hope I answered your question. Please answer further more information on that question so I can give you everything you need to get cloud hired. So Chris, let's go to the next question. Emmanuel, you did your cloud practitioner recently, now preparing for the solution architect. Poor in coding, is this achievable? Emmanuel, what's your goal career? Cloud architect, solution architects don't code. They don't configure either. They don't touch the technology. So if you're an architect like me, you will never code, and you don't need to code. There's no coding in any of these certifications, but the key is, what do you want to do? Cloud architects, no need to code. Cloud engineers, you must code. DevOps engineers, you must code. So the two questions is this. It's not whether you're bad at coding or good at coding. You learn. Nobody's born good at anything. Now the key is, do you like it or does it make you sick? And I'll tell you this. About 24 years ago, I had this crazy manager, Malesh. He seemed to think that he was going to take his lead network architect and send him to school to teach him to code. Well, he was fired from his job for a good reason. He sent me to learn to code. I came back from this week of training, and I knew how to write a bash script, which gave me the worst headache of my life. But I knew how to do it. And when I went back, they had outages, which cost millions of dollars. And they said, Mike, you are right. Why would we ever ask an architect to code? Now, my manager was fired because he decided that he was going to send someone whose job was making the systems work to learn how to code. And that was not what architects do. And so there's that. Now, interestingly enough, that character has had a very junior level consulting job for the last 20 years when he was the chief information officer 20 some years ago. So there is that. But, the point is you got to figure out what makes you happy. If you want an engineering job, Emmanuel, learn to code. And you can do it. If you're like me and you hate to code, don't become an engineer, become an architect. So it's a matter of nothing is natural to us. Now, my cat, the reason I say a cat is animals have instincts. A kitten that gets born, that's abandoned by its mother, knows how to survive. It knows how to find bugs. It knows how to find water and drink. It knows that. But a human baby will die within 3 days if a person doesn't take care of it, because humans don't know anything until we're taught. I wasn't born, Emmanuel, knowing how to practice medicine. 7 years of school taught me how to practice medicine. I wasn't born a network architect. I trained to be an architect, read about 75,000 pages of reading, and then I was a network architect. I trained to be a cloud architect. So it's all about training. So, Emmanuel, what do you love? That's what you do. Cloud practitioner, good, nice start, intro. Now you can determine what you want to do. Cloud sales, no coding. Cloud architect, no coding. So see, there's so many wonderful things you can do that don't involve coding. Project management, no coding. Cloud project management's another good job, but you want to be a cloud engineer, you must need to code. You want to be a maintenance person or a Cissp person, you need to code. Want to be a DevOps person, you need to code. But you don't have to take any of those jobs. Get the job you want. All my students that get cloud architect jobs, half of them don't know how to code because it's not part of their job and it's not necessary. It's not even a valuable skill for us. So imagine you're the pilot of an airplane and someone says, here, I just taught you how to be an airline mechanic. Now, for an architect like me, that's about how valuable coding is. The pilot that's trying to fly the plane, teach them how to use a screwdriver and the engine. He or she as a pilot can't be outside on the wing on the engine when they're flying the airplane anyway. They got to be in the cockpit. So it's a useless skill for the pilot to be an airline mechanic. But, it's a useful skill for the architect to code. Now, if you're an engineer, it's a very valuable skill and a critical skill. So, Emmanuel, I ask, what job would you like? You do that? I It can help you how to get hired. So tell me what you would actually like. Cloud architect, we could train you, get you hired, and you'll never need to code. But if you want to be an engineer, take a deep breath, believe in yourself, focus, and learn to code. It's all achievable. It's all what do you want to do? What's going to make you happy? But remember, and I always go back to this, humans are born with zero knowledge and zero instincts. Everything you learn, thank your parent, thank your teacher, thank somebody along the way. That's what I want to hear. That's what I'm excited about. That's what's so great. That's why I love being a teacher and an educator. That's why even as a CEO, I still teach my cloud architect class. Why? I love opening minds. I love changing lives. I love getting people hired. I love it. I love it. And I love it some more. When somebody says to me, Mike, I'm hired, I mean, it practically brings me to tears. Actually, in most cases, it does bring me to tears because I'm so hired. Because I remember what it was like going from the beginning to getting a great job and how it changed my lives, my family's lives, and how many wonderful things I could do. I loved it. Keep that in the back of your mind. You can do anything that you set your mind to. Just fight, fight, fight. But you don't have to code. If you want to be a cloud architect, cloud sales, cloud project management, there's so many great jobs that don't involve coding if you don't enjoy it. Great question, Emmanuel. Chris, let's bring in the next one. And please ask your questions in the chat box so I can help you build the best career. Can you please suggest how strong coding skills are needed for a solution architect? Emmanuel, we don't code ever, ever, ever. It's not a useful skill at all. So don't worry about it for the architect. That's like, in fact, if you ask me, how useful is it to code? I would ask you, how useful is it to you to become a mechanic? Because being a mechanic is probably more practical to you than coding. And here's the reason why. If you're a mechanic and your car breaks down, you might know what to do with it, but you will never code as an architect. Truth be told, Emmanuel, you'll never configure either, and you won't be touching the technology. What are you going to be doing? Designing, presenting, and selling. Great job. Chris, let's go to the next one. Lady Godiva, you're trying to choose between a cloud architect and an infrastructure architect, but I'm concerned that the networking may be too complicated. What are your thoughts? Lady Godiva, I don't believe anything is too complicated. I believe you can learn anything you want. Now, I will tell you this. The networking is far more complicated than the cloud. Far more. CCIE, 75,000 pages. Certified Solution Architect Professional, 500. But to be fair, the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional is nothing. And it's not enough to get anybody a job doing anything, even a cloud man. It's not enough for anything. So when you really determine what is it going to take to create a good cloud architect, you know, Lady Godiva, it's 500 plus hours of training for us. 500 hours. Now, 1 minute of video is approximately 300 words. So if you think, if we have 500 hours of total video training, and each minute is 300 words, which is a page, for example, 60 minutes would be 60 pages, and we've got 500 out of it. Now we're dealing with about 35,000 pages of content just in our lectures, plus, you know, the books that we wrote, the required reading. So even for our architects, we're covering the equivalent of 40 to 50,000 pages of reading, which is about the same as a CCIE. So no matter what, to be great at your job, you're going to have to learn a lot. Now, networking is still more complicated. It is. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. Of course you can do it. So here's the thing. If your version of training is taking a Udemy course, it's going to be complicated. And here's the reason why. You know, like this guy in Australia that's making a course that's 7x CCI certified, that's now telling everybody out about a security course, and he copies my social media things every day, word for word copies them. You know, he doesn't know security, and he's teaching a security course. And as Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you won't know it well enough. And if that's the way you're learning networking or security, it's going to be complicated, and miserable because the instructor doesn't know it. So here's what you hear. Blah, 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 blah. Now, Lady Godiva, I've taught networking to incredible numbers of people, to engineers and architects in Cisco, to engineers and architects in Nokia, which was Riverstone at the time, to engineers and architects at WorldCom and Verizon. I've taught it at conferences. I've been teaching networking forever. And Lady Godiva, when I'm done teaching networking, they're like, oh my God, Mike, it's so simple. why did I think it was so hard? And I said, who taught you? And when they mentioned the person's background, I said, there you go. They didn't know networking. So the key is find yourself a real instructor. What is a real instructor, Lady Godiva? It's not someone that made a Udemy course or never had a job, got certified and passed an exam. We've got tons of them. And frankly, yesterday, somebody in India reached out to me to teach them cloud computing. Now, the person selling an AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate course. And he said, teach me cloud computing so I can get a job. And I said, no. And he said, why? I said, I will teach you cloud computing when you take down your AWS course. And he said, why? I said, because you just admitted you don't know computing and you're teaching it. So I will train you, but you cannot teach AWS for at least 5 years. The person said, of course not. I said, you can't teach what you don't know. So if you want me to teach you, I don't want your content out there hurting other people. And he said, but I want to sell my content. I said, well, then you sell your content, but I'm not going to train you because I don't want you to get 3% of my knowledge and all the lack of knowledge and then further hurt your students because you don't even know what you don't know. So that's the thing. You can do it all, but make sure you get the correct training. If you learn networking from us, we'll teach you. If not, you want to do networking, that's okay. Go to Cisco. They have excellent networking training, top notch, and you will learn it. Juniper Networks has extremely good networking training. That can work as well. Learn from me, learn from Cisco, learn from Juniper. Just don't try to learn networking on Udemy because it's not going to be good enough. You need something real. You need to go from a real network architect that's teaching at a real place that's been working on it forever. Make the complicated simple. We can do that if we understand it. And that's the thing. Everything is complicated. Heck, when I learned molecular biology in school, that was complicated. I didn't get it. I took a class, spoke to the teaching assistant who didn't know it either. Then one day, I was really lost. I went to the head of the molecular biology department, who was an expert, who worked in the field and then decided to run it. And I asked her, I said, could you please help me with this? I'm lost. 3 minutes. She explained what I didn't understand in the previous 30 hours. I spent 30 minutes with her. The rest of the year was simple. And that's why I've trained so many CCIEs, so many CCNPs, so many CCNAs, so many working network engineers, so many architects. And they all said, Mike, wow, thank you. You made it simple. Find somebody that understands it and can explain it. Everything is complicated until it's simply explained. And once it's simply and easily explained, you're going to get it, you're going to be solid, and you're going to be strong. That's my thoughts. You can do it, Lady Godiva. You're here. You can do anything. You can do anything you set your mind to with the right training. Nobody's born knowing how to fly a plane. Nobody's born an attorney. Nobody's born a doctor. Nobody's born anything. And guess what? It's all complicated. But here's the thing, Lady Godiva. What's complicated for you might not be complicated for me. So yesterday, one of my closest friends, Ted, comes to my house. 3 days ago, my garage door opener started and stopped opening and closing on its own. I pulled the button. I've been lifting it and closing it manually, right? My friend, and I read the instructions. I Googled it. I YouTubed it. 6 hours later, I was more confused than when I started. My buddy Ted comes over. Mike, read something. 30 seconds later, my garage is fixed. Why? Because it's easy for him. So we have things that are easy for us to learn and things for us that are hard to learn. I could learn coding, but my brain doesn't like that way. It's not the structured way I think, so it's not the right career for me. Sure, I could do it. I know how to do it. I learned it 20 years ago, but I never used it. But yeah, sure, but other things come easily. Architect works come easy to me. Why? I like to talk. I like to present. I like to build relationships. I like to sell. I enjoy it. I like to entertain clients, which is the architect job. I like to talk to people. Write documents to me, that's fun. Touching tech to me is torture. But that doesn't mean it's not a valuable skill and fun for somebody else. My friend Moses, wow. You walk in his house. He says a word, the lights go darker. Next thing you walk in the next room, it welcomes you. Hi, Mike. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a year. That's his whole house. It's all digital enabled. I'm like, wow. You get to my house. The power goes out on the oven and it blinks 12 p.m. for the next 2 years because I don't feel like getting code because it's torture to me because I don't like touching it. So the point is what's easy for you will be not. So find what you love, Lady Godiva. Do what you love. Learn what you love. And guess what? It won't be work. As Mark Twain said, make your vacation your vocation. You'll never work another day in your life. I'll tell you this. I worked in medicine. I enjoyed it, but it was work. I'd come home tired. And then I went to tech. And you know what? I put a lot of 16-hour days in, but I don't think I've ever worked. It's all been fun. Chris, let's go to the next one. And please ask us questions in the chat box. Update knowledge by Gaurav. Sir, if you do Azure A105, in which Cloud Active Directory knowledge, can I get a job with this? Indeed, Udemy teacher? Of course not. There is no course on Udemy that will ever get you a job. You've done Ccna certifications from Training Basket Noti, and okay, that means that you'd learned how to configure some things, and you did a job for technical support L1. Okay, you've done a Udemy course. Okay, so you've told me you've taken some basic training courses, but I don't know what you do to actually how to know anything. So I would not say that's going to be enough to do anything. There's nothing you're going to do with Udemy AZ104 course other than pass a certification exam. It's not enough to do anything. There is no Udemy course that's going to get you a job. Skills and knowledge are going to get you a job, not a basic inter-level certification. So the question is, what job do you like? And then I can build you a path to get there. But I can tell you right now, you can take 100 certification courses and you'll still never become a cloud architect. Training to be a cloud architect will make you a cloud architect. Likewise, you could take 50 networking courses and still not be a network architect, because the courses don't teach networking architecture except for maybe the Cisco Certified Design Expert. And if you're willing to do those 100,000 pages of reading for the CCDIE, then yeah, that might get you a job. But you're not going to do that on Udemy either, because the people that can teach these courses are not on Udemy. People that can really teach a course don't teach on Udemy. They're hired by Cisco. They work for Global Knowledge. They work for Juniper. They work for Palo Alto. They work for Nutanix. Or they have their own firms like me, where we've got a team of people that delivers excellent results. There's nothing on Udemy that's going to get anybody a job. That's why I formed the company. Because here's what I did. I saw the horrible AWS certification courses that were out there. And I saw that they taught them how to configure something, and the name of it, none of them taught how they worked, why people should use them, what the point of them was, what was going on under the hood. And I looked at that and went, what's the point? Which is why I created our How to Get Your First Cloud Job program for cloud architects and cloud engineers, because I wanted people to get hired. And my students get hired every day of the week. And every time my student says, Mike, what do you think of this course? I say, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. Look at it this way. The people that are teaching on Udemy, if they were really architects, unless they're like me where I don't need to work. I retired at 34. Why? Because I was a real architect and had a great job, and I did consulting for fun. Unless if the person needs a job, you've got a good architect that can earn $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year working. Why are they going to sell a course for $199, which is what they're going to get paid on Udemy? $1.99. It's nothing. And good architects, good capable people aren't going to be producing courses there. So if you've got a course there, you can use it adjunct to real training, but realize it's not going to do anything for you. So I don't recommend Udemy courses for anybody that wants a job. I recommend proper training. Now, I'm sure there's some good Udemy instructors that I've never seen. And I do love Udemy as a platform. Want to learn how to do yard work? Go to Udemy. Want to learn how to bake something? Go to Udemy. Udemy is a great place for ordinary average people to teach ordinary average skills like sewing, basket weaving. I love it. But a career? No. You need a career professional, not somebody to put their course on Udemy. So you can't do anything with the course. But if you tell me what your career is that you desire, I can tell you how to get it and where to get the training and the right training is. So Chris, let's go to the next question, because and ask me what your real question is, what job you actually want, then I can tell you what you can do. Realize certifications do not get people hired. Training gets people hired. Focus gets people hired. Knowledge gets people hired. Attitude gets people hired. Energy gets people hired. Enthusiasm, right? Personality gets people hired. Not certification courses. Yoshito, what a great question. Is coding required for cloud jobs? It depends on the cloud job. Cloud sales, no coding. Cloud architects, no coding. Cloud program managers, no coding. Cloud engineer, coding. DevOps engineer, coding. So it depends on which job you actually want. So Yoshida, if you actually tell us which job you would like, I can actually tell you the exact skills that you can get to be there. Exact skills, tell you what to learn, where to learn it, but it's all different jobs. So the best way I can describe it is an airplane pilot has a different job than a flight attendant, who has a different job than a baggage handler, who has a different job than an airplane mechanic. And when you realize that, then you know that the airplane pilot needs to know how to fly the plane. The flight attendant needs to know how to keep the people safe in the back of the airplane. The airline mechanic needs to know how to fix the plane and make it work. So you can see it's different skills. So Yoshida, and I love that question, tell me the job you want, and then I can tell you which skills you need to get there. But it's all about the job. And your question brings up a really great point. People just say the cloud. And what people don't realize is the cloud is just a network and a data center. That's it, just like every other network and data center in the entire world. That's it. So database engineer, developers, yep, got them in the cloud, got them in the data center. Security engineers, got them in the cloud and the data center. Security architects, have them in the cloud and the data center. Networking people, have them in the cloud, have them in the data center. Big data people, have them in the cloud and the data center. Every job that previously existed also still goes in the cloud. So figure out the job you want, and I will tell you the path to get there. But since all airplanes don't take you to the same destination, it's important when you want to go somewhere, you get in the right destination. If I want to go to Boston, I get in one plane. Bangalore, I get another plane. Barbados, I get another plane. To visit Eddie and Baminda, I get in Cameroon, I get another plane. I'm running out of things that begin with a B right now. I haven't watched enough Cookie Monster today, so or Sesame Street with my cat. She loves Cookie Monster, so occasionally I watch some Sesame Street with the cat. All the videos. It is what it is. So please, any additional questions, tell me what your goal is. I'd love to help you get there. But I want to know what job it is. So Chris, before we go to the next one, please bring us some questions so I can help you build your best careers. And please make sure you join us on Thursday on the How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar. On this one, we will teach you everything you need to know to get your first cloud architect job. I'll present for an hour, and you'll be on Zoom. So you can come up on Zoom, and we can have a live question and dialogue, and I love that. Join us, and I'll tell you exactly how to get cloud hired. The link for the webinar is in the description below and the chat box. Now, Chris, bring in the next one. What path can I take my interest to become a cloud security architect? Okay, Burra, that's a great question. So the first thing is you need to understand the cloud, and then you need to understand security. So the path is as follows. First, learn the network and the data center. Not to the degree of a regular cloud architect, but you should still have some good knowledge of BGP. You should still have some very good knowledge of IP addressing, subnetting, and supernetting, because you're going to need that. You need to understand at least the switching concepts of VLANs, VLAN tagging, and VLAN trunking, as well. Definitely critical skills for the cloud security architect. Now, for the cloud security architect, NAT is going to be critical. One-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, PAT, critical. Now, for the cloud security architect, ARP and proxy ARP and DNS and DHCP, they're critical. Now, when you're dealing with the cloud security architect, sure, you still, you're going to get involved with some servers, but it's more about how do you lock down the servers. So you're going to be thinking about operating systems and their vulnerabilities, patch management, disabling unnecessary services and the kind of things that you're going to be using, the identity and access management that you'll be using for your systems. You're going to be thinking about how do you encrypt your storage? Where do you put your storage? You're going to be thinking about things like data loss protection. Then you're going to be thinking about your next generation firewalls, your intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems, your VPN concentrators, and you need to know all about these things. Then you're going to be looking at zero trust architectures and how you put these things together. Then you're going to be looking at how do you secure your WAN. Maybe you have a private line with encryption running on it, for example, or encrypted over the internet. So those are some really critical things that you need to be focusing on as well. Then you need to learn things like how to design a security architecture, putting all the pieces together. Then it's how do you present the security architecture, sell the security architecture. It's about writing security policies for the entire organization, writing incident response procedures when things happen, designing incident response teams, doing education of the users. Don't click on that link, by the way. For example, like anti-phishing things and anti-social engineering things so that people can't come in and manipulate your people. You got to train them that. And then it's all about, selling these solutions. So of course it takes the business acumen, the communication skills, the leadership skills, the sales skills, there's that. So those are really the things that are part of being a cloud security architect. There's a fair amount of networking in there, but keep that in the back of your mind because everything's on the network and the network has a lot of security. Access control list on the network, MAC address authentication on the network, although it's pretty tough on the cloud, but you can do it on the systems that connect to the cloud. Physical security. So these are the skills of the cloud security architect. How do you lock down systems, make them secure, stable, and available? These are the kind of things that you need to do. And yes, it's a great, great, great job. So their path is learn those things. But of course, Burra, like every other architect position, they are impossible to get unless you're an executive. So we could train you for the executive piece, and we would be honored to do so. You could also do a master's in business administration for the executive piece where they could teach you this, because you have to learn about consulting methodologies, executive presentations, executive sales skills, communication skills, presentation skills, leadership skills, high levels of emotional intelligence. These are the critical skills. So we could train you, or make sure you go up some presentation training, some sales training, some executive presence training, some leadership training, some CXO relevancy training. While you're at it, if you're not already in security, you probably are going to need some interview training and coaching on that because these are big jobs. That and then those security skills. That is the path to be a cloud security architect. It is a wonderful job. I was speaking with one of my students who's a cloud security architect just today, and he's having so much fun. He loves it every day. Great job, by the way. Great job. Gonza. Mike, you have been great. I've been following your channel for a while now. Lots of useful information, and thank you very much. Gonza, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I appreciate you being here. I'm thrilled you're here, and thank you again. I have a cloud infrastructure architect interview soon. Great. You've applied for the architect of the past, didn't make it. What advice would I give you for the position? Can't really find the difference. How much do you know about infrastructure? Can you talk about BGP? How does it work? How to tune it? How do you load share without getting out over packets? That's there. How do you micro segment your network? How do you build an IP addressing plan? How do you tune the wide area network technology? How do you deal with 1,000 VPCs? Yes, you heard me, 1,000 VPCs. See, in the network in the data center, we have high security. And in the cloud, we don't have a lot of security. So in the cloud, how do we work around that? Maybe 1,000 VPCs and VPC peering, which means, guess what? More BGP. What's your knowledge and inner working of route reflectors versus BGP optimization? Do you know how to multi-home to 4 and 5 different internet service providers and tune the routing? Because that's going to be critical for the job as well. So, those are the skills, the IP addressing scan, the NAT, dealing with overlapping IP addresses when one company buys another, for example. So what you're really looking for is like the Cisco CCIE level of knowledge. That's what you need in an infrastructure architect. Big knowledge of that. Now, some of them deal with load balancers. True networking professionals don't use load balancers, but the hybrid networking professionals often get involved in load balancers. So you probably should know some load balancers because it is the cloud. And then you're going to have to learn how to work around all the cloud's problems. For example, the cloud has very poor networking. How poor is it, Gonza, to put it into context? AWS, which is an amazing cloud. I mean, a truly amazing cloud. You've got a 10 gig link to AWS, right? For internet. You can't push more than 1.25 gigs over a VPN, no matter what. Due to some limitations. Now, AWS last year announced east-west routing, which Cisco did in 1985, which meant routing between subnets. So when you start seeing this kind of complexity, there's so many workarounds on the cloud to get to 1999 level networking, because cloud networking is 20 years behind. So you need really good old school networking skills. But for example, when you connect to the internet, we get 800,000 routes from a router. each internet service provider. Now, connect to AWS and they let you send them 1,000. 100. It's nothing. So you got to realize much more supervision, much more attention to IP addressing and planning. And because you can't do the physical security and a lot of the other things, we've got a micro segment in depth. So because of that, there's that. So at the same time, you've got to really become a master interviewer, especially if this is not your expertise. And what is it that you have to accomplish on the interview? You cannot look like an engineer, and you still have to look technically competent. Ugh, yeah, that's the hard part. And here's why most people don't get it. Engineers apply for architect jobs, and they talk about engineering. And that's not the case. It's not the case. They talk about architecture. So, for example, if you're on an architect interview versus an engineering interview, and someone did a test your knowledge of interior gateway protocols, they probably use exterior gateway protocols, but let's just say right now we're going to talk about interior gateway protocols. And there's no way I would interview a cloud network architect and not ask them about interior gateway protocols, because we need an interior gateway protocol for the IBGP pairing, which we may have to use in our data center, which is connecting to multiple clouds. So I might say, tell me about OSPF. Now, a network architect versus an engineer might say, OSPF is a routing protocol. It's a link state routing protocol. You can figure it like this. That's an engineer. And they'll talk about router OSPF, and then we'll talk about a process number, and they'll talk about network statements. That's engineering. It's hands-on. Now, the architect concept is going to be different. We can say, OSPF is a link state routing protocol that we use for intra-domain routing. Let's talk. OSPF uses the shortest path first algorithm, otherwise known as the Dijkstra algorithm. The way it works is as follows. Routers all send the state of each and every one of their links. And when happens, the routers get the state of each and every link, and then they run the routing path. So let's talk about it, because we've got lots of link state advertisement. We have what's called a network LSA, which is generated by every single router, and every router inside of that area will have access to the type 1 LSA. By comparison, if we're on a broadcast multi-access segment like Ethernet, each LAN segment will elect a designated router and a backup designated router. So for those reasons, we'll have a type 2 LSA, which are generated by the designated routers. Now, LSPF is this concept of areas, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Before we get into the concept of areas, let's talk about a type 3 LSA, which is a summary route or summary LSA, which is sent in between areas to make sure you can optimize the amount of information that's stored in your link state database. Now, while we're at it, let's talk about a type 4 LSA. And what that does is it tells you how to reach something called an autonomous system border router, which is a router that connects to an external domain. And of course, we have our type 5 LSAs, which are what are they? They're LSAs that are link states that are coming in from another protocol, such as BGP, RIP, or EIGRP. Now, we also have this concept of the type 7 LSA, which is really a type 5 LSA in a not so stubby area. And we're going to talk about that next. See, Gonza, what I did not touch. I did not discuss how to configure it. I talked about what the tech is. So in a cloud network interview or a cloud infrastructure interview, you have to talk about what is the tech, how does the tech work, why does the organization use it, and the business features. So it's all about that. Well, we consider SASE as a WAN. The reason we would consider SASE is it leverages the available internet, which is relatively inexpensive and it's quite ubiquitous. It determines the best path. We can go through the internet to this connection point, which will give us a secure firewalled off private connection with optimized routing. By doing this, we can build connections better, faster, and cheaper than with other technologies such as private lines. Now then, you're there. So Gonza, it's really about showing that you can advise a customer on what's going to improve their business performance. And for the cloud infrastructure architect, it's about how do you make that network sing? And it's all about multi-cloud, because there's nobody that would be crazy enough if they need high availability to use a single cloud in today's world. There's a few people that are migrating off of it. Gonza, 87% of customers are on 2 clouds and 97% claim to be or desire to be by the end of the year. So it's all about your multi-cloud networking, your BGP, your ability to build an addressing planning, and your ability to design it, present it, and sell to customers. You do that, Gonza, you'll be cloud hard as a cloud infrastructure architect. And I hope you get this. And if you're not, we will be honored to train you, teach you how to get an interview, and we will make sure that you do get it in the future, because you can definitely get these roles. I will tell you, I've been a cloud infrastructure architect for as long as I can remember, although sometimes I do cloud enterprise architect work and generic cloud architect work, but I'm always personally, in my point, biased on one of two sides. I either bias towards the business side or I bias towards the networking side. And why am I so biased on networking? Without the network, you've got nothing. So when it comes to high availability, which all my customers need, it's all about the network. Great question. Yeah, Shell, is there any problem with a cloud career on arrival with blockchain? Not at all. So yes, the cloud is growing, 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 and growing. Now, blockchain may die, or it may make it. My estimation and prediction after being in technology for about 25 years is 95% of all this blockchain nonsense, most of the NFTs are going to die. And they're going to die hard and die fast and die badly. And then there's going to be some good blockchain projects that actually work, tracking equipment. There may be a cryptocurrency or two, tracking medications for diversion and things like that. Now that's where blockchain is going to excel. I truly believe 95% of all this NFT nonsense is going to go away. You know, when I was younger, Yash, there was something called Second Life, and people were wasting all their time going to this virtual world, spending hours of time, effort, and money buying virtual art and buying digital real estate, and it was crazy. And people said to me, Mike, play with this. And I said, why would I ever waste my time here? It's sunny, the beach is outside. I'm not going to go live in a virtual world. So, you know, there's a reason that Second Life died. No, there's Second Life V2 that's out there right now, and some people are excited about it. Although I got to tell you, half the business people I speak to, they're like, look, that's the end. Nobody's going to waste their time on this. So I guess we'll see. Time will tell. But no, cloud has job after job after job after job. Blockchain has a few jobs out there. May have more, may have none, may die completely. We don't know, but I can tell you, cloud's not going anywhere. Not going anywhere. So no problem with any cloud career. And I don't think blockchain is going to get in the way of any careers whatsoever. It may be a good option. It may be good. It may be the worst mistake that people are investing in. I'm not sure. If I thought it was great, I'd be investing in hiring a blockchain person to develop a blockchain program. It's not on my list of top 10 careers right now at all. It's on my watchful waiting, watchful waiting, watchful waiting. So remember a couple of years ago where everybody was focused on 3D TVs and now you can't even buy one? That's what I think most of these virtual worlds will be, and 99% of these NFTs gone. Like the VHS cassette, or the Betamax cassette before it, or the Walkman. I think it's dead, dead, and dead on most of these, but some will make it. But I wouldn't be giving up my cloud career for that. Ansem, thanks, Mike, for the fantastic knowledge you're sharing. Ansem, it's so nice to speak to you. Burra, God bless you, Mike. Thank you so much, Burra. God bless you as well, and I hope and wish for the best to you, and that's why I'm here. I want to make everybody's life better. Nature of life work. What are the key forums used to peruse for cloud architect role? Chris, do you know what he means by forums? Is he talking about Reddit and things like that? And you don't know either. So natural life work, I don't know what you mean by forums. I'll tell you what, I have found no forum on the internet that will help you get a job whatsoever for architects. I have seen forums that are out there, and 99% of them are cloud admins, cloud engineers, people that have never had a job in their life, and they're giving advice, so I don't go to forums. I never go to forums. And that's really a critical way. So, you know, when it comes to success in life, where do you get your advice from? When I need medical advice, even though I can practice medicine, I go to a doctor. I don't go to a forum. When a CEO wants guidance on how to build their business, they hire a management consultant, etc. They don't go to a forum. A cloud architect is an elite career that pays between $150,000 and $500,000 a year. People on these forums are not architects, and they will not guide you anywhere. So I don't advise any forums. What is the forums? Well, maybe you could go to Harvard for an MBA, for example. That would be a valid forum. You could take a course like ours, and in our course, we talk to you. That's a valid forum. You could get an MBA, which is a valid forum. You could get a Ccic to learn networking, and through the Cisco Academy, and go through the 75,000 pages of reading. Yeah, that's a valid forum, but no. It's not like I'm going to say, hey, go to this Reddit forum and they're going to advise you to be a cloud architect. How can they? Now, here's the thing, Nature for Life. Here's the most dangerous advice I see it, and I see it happen on Reddit every day. I see it happens on LinkedIn every day. Somebody says, which certification I should get. Now, the question itself is a dangerous question. But what really happens? You should do this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. 1,000 people recommend something. How do I know that they're all wrong unless one's right by accident? Here's the thing, Nature Life Work. Not a single person on that forum will ever ask the person, what's your goal career? Never. They never ask them their background, their goals, what they're good at, what they're not good at, what they like, what they don't like. Here's what they say. Certification. You know what happens when somebody gets a certification? Nothing. So the key is what forums are. Tell me the skill that you would like. For a cloud architect, here's what you've got to do. You've got to learn the network and the data center, and there's no forum that's going to teach you that. And I'm also going to tell you this. There's no good architect that's going to waste their time in a forum all day long. None. So who's left in the forum? Unemployed people, homeless people, and people that have absolutely no idea how to get to their goals. And they're all basically advising each other with bad advice. And then you get people that are not there. So where do you go? You go to an architect that's got 20 years experience and ask them, what do I need to do? That's a professional. You go to a company like ours, where I've been an architect for 25 years, and all we do is architecture. I know some engineering because I have some extra great engineers, but that's what we do. I'm here as an expert, completely free to help you, because I don't want you to have to go to a forum and get advised by people that have never had the job in their life before. That's why I'm doing this, because I know what happens when you do this. And Nature Life Work, I've got students from every single silly certification program in the world. All those people, they come to me, they've wasted 1, 2, 3 years in getting certified. They've learned every skill for the forum. The forums will tell you to learn Linux. They'll tell you to learn Python. They'll tell you to learn Cissp. They'll tell you to learn DevOps. You know what I'm going to have to do to get you hired as a cloud architect? Remove that stuff from your resume, because it'll make you look like a non-architect. So that's the difference. There's no forums that I'm going to recommend. I'm going to recommend you find a real academy, or you get an MBA from a respected university for the business acumen, and then you go to respected academies, either ours or the Cisco Academy, the AWS Academy. Combine 4 or 5 different real professional academies, and you'll get there. Now, granted, our cost is going to be 10% of what it's going to cost you to do that, or less. But still, I want you to get hired, and forums are not the place to do it. Talk with Iman. Hello, sir. What's the future of the cloud sales engineer? I think it's dying. And here's the reason it's dying. So, Iman, we got to talk about what the sales engineer role really was. And it goes back about 30, 40 years. And here's what followed. We had sales reps in those days, which were business people that would go sell anything to anybody, whether it would work or not. And we had the sales engineer, which was a hybrid person. They had some sales skills, and they had relatively good tech skills. And they would design it, present it, and sell it back. And here's the problem. They were very critical people, and I was a sales engineer for a long time. Many sales engineers were also doing architect work. So there's that. And then what happened? So when I was there, you had to configure every router via the command line. And it was complicated. And everything was so hard. So the sales engineer was a deep techie who knew a little bit about a business, and then you had a business executive selling it that worked. Now, what ultimately happened, Iman, was the tech got more functional. It worked, it got simpler, much easier than it used to be. So now we don't need the engineer that's still rough around the edges, knows a little bit of sales, but a lot of engineering. The roles switch towards architects. And architects are much better business people. They have much more business acumen, much greater leadership, much greater sales, much greater executive presence, emotional intelligence, and those things. And now you have a sales rep who's really salesy, and an architect who's more business and more salesy. And, that's kind of, the right place. That's where we're headed. So we're going from engineers to architects. AWS was one of the leaders. When I moved from engineering to architecture a long time ago, only the best companies had architects. Cisco had them. IBM had them, Microsoft had them. They were the big companies that were saying, look, the tech can solve your business problems, and we have an architect. And it was a hybrid between an engineer and an architect. See the engineer roles just going. In the back end, I see deep technical engineers, again, which are going to have sales engineers level communication skills because the tech's not so complicated now. So there's no reason to have engineers that we have to hide in the basement, that we have to bring food in, that don't know to shower, can't talk to people. That's kind of gone. And so now the way I see it is we've got great sales reps, great cloud architects, cloud engineers that have the business communication skills almost as good as the sales engineer, and then DevOps engineers. And they're going to be the people that automate all this kind of stuff. Kind of keep that in both places. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. That's what we're kind of talking about. So the future of the sales engineer, I think, is pretty much dead. I think it's going by the way of architects, which much greater business acumen, leadership skills, sales skills, executive presence. And when did it start? About 20 years ago, this process has occurred. When I was at Cisco, they were starting to teach the engineers how to present better, how to sell better. In fact, Imam, when I was at Cisco, I was part of the SE specialization program, the sales engineer specialization program. And it was deemed to teach people specific, so to keep the engineers from becoming a jack of all trades and a master of none, because engineers love tech and they want to learn everything, right? And as soon as you get certified in 10 things, you just destroyed your career and you're worth nothing. So they had me and a few other experts teaching the engineers, the sales engineers specifically, here's your focus. Here's your focus. What do you want your focus to be? Great, that's how you become an expert on it. That's what I was doing. And I've been watching this trend go from more sales engineers to more architects. So I see it more architect-driven, less engineering-driven. Where do I see the cloud architect career in 1, 5, and 10 years? Growing, 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 and growing some more. But it's going to be more the way we teach architects than other people. And here's the reason why. The whole point of the architect is digital transformation. How do you improve a customer's business with digital transformation? Now, for a while, we had more technical architects. Now, almost every day, Olio, one of my students gets hired. And why are they getting hired? They're getting hired for the following reason. My students are masters at business. I teach them so much business acumen, leadership, scale skills, executive presence. That's what I teach them. And my students get hired at a velocity like you haven't been seen. They get hired with a background, with no tech background. I'm pulling up something for you for a reason. With a tech background, with no tech background, with experience, without experience, they're still getting hired. And the reason they're getting hired is as follows. They are exactly what the customers demand. So what I'm saying, because I speak to CEOs, CTOs, and even about a week ago, I was speaking with another chief information officer and chief technology officer who reached out to me and said, Mike, one of your architects didn't take the job I offered him, but I need a lot more, so let's talk. And they said, I don't want an engineer. I don't want a techie. I want someone that can lead, present, sell, understand my customers, and understands digital transformation. At the same time this year, we had Gartner ask the chief information officer, what is it you want in a cloud architect? And they'll tell you right now, I'm reading from the list, lead the cultural change for cloud adoption, develop and coordinate a cloud architecture, develop a cloud strategy and coordinated adoption process, find talent with the necessary skills, assess application software and hardware, establish a cloud broker team, establish best practices for the cloud across the company, select cloud providers and vet third-party services, oversee governance and mitigate risk, working with the IT security people to monitor privacy and develop incident response procedures, manage budgets and estimate costs and operate at scale. Now, what do you not hear there? Configure, touch the technology, code. So we don't do that. So where do I see it? More business, more business, more business. Look at this. The tech is getting easier, right? Artificial intelligence at some point is going to configure it. What do we need the people for then? To show the businesses what kind of tech they need, how the tech will work, how the tech will tune their business, how the tech will make their business better. You master that, you'll have a career 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now. I was taught that 20 years ago. And because of that, I was early in my career, was like a rocket ship. So I was able to retire so early. Still, every day I get a student hired, or almost every day. And when I speak to the hiring managers, or a lot of times I do a lot of reference checks and I speak to some executives and they're like, wow, this person was so special because of this. It was their presentation skills, scale skills. You know how many engineers tell me about their coding on an interview and I have to basically escort them out the room? That's the thing where it's going. Business, 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 and more business, and multi-cloud. And of course, with everything else, initially vendors come up and they got their proprietary stuff. Cisco had IGRP, EIGRP, HSRP, great stuff, right? ISO trunking. The industry changed and they got rid of HSRP. It got replaced by VRRP. ISO trunking, which was proprietary, got replaced by 802.1q, a standards-based thing. EIGRP got replaced with OSPF, which was standards-based and worked on everything. So all that stuff in certification, all that proprietary nonsense, that's gone. We're not going to be using a DynamoDB or an Amazon Aurora or an Elastic Compute Service. That's gone. We will be using Kubernetes. We will be using open source or databases we can use across everything, open standards. So all the proprietary nonsense, that's all gone too in the next 10 years, from my perspective anyway. Just like EIGRP is gone, HSRP is gone, and all that other stuff is gone. Great question. Elizabeth, hi, you have a background in business administration and management. Excellent. Which of the cloud career is good for you? Well, you could do anything you want, Elizabeth. So like I say, don't let your past define your future. Whatever you desire to do is what you dream about, is what you should be. Having said that, if you've got a business administration background, you're already a third of the way to the architect background, which is a lot going to be closer than engineering. So if you're looking for something that can leverage your past skills and experience that you've already got some experience in, it's the cloud architect role or the cloud sales role or the cloud project management role, not engineering. And I got to tell you, the architect has some of the best opportunities out there. It's the highest paying of the, well, actually the sales is the highest paying, the architect's the second highest paying. There's much more security as an architect than sales though too. Those would be the absolute best careers for business people, because look at it this way, the architect's a business job. It's all about business administration and management. Everything we do is about improving a customer's business performance. And that's why you can't get a certification and get a cloud architect job. You have to understand business management, administration, optimization, consulting. So I would say the cloud architect role would be beautiful for you. But you could also do cloud sales, or you could also do cloud project management as well, or program management. Great question. Great question. Lady Godiva, do you still present if you do networking as a cloud architect? Yeah, constantly. There is no job that's an architect job, Lady Godiva, where you touch the technology. It always involves designing, presenting, and selling. That's the whole job. Who do you present to? You present to the customers. You present to your internal management. You present to your team. You present at industry conferences. You're always going to be presenting. So yes, constant presenting, design, present, and sell. All architects, enterprise architect, cloud architect, solution architect, business architect, you name it, all architects, security architects, network architects. It's all a design, present, and sell position. Great question. Chris, we can go to the next one. James. You're using a platform for study the AWS professional. Is it worth completing the labs? Career goal, security architect? James, you got to knock out the AWS certified solution architect professional. Well, you don't have to, but I like you to knock it out. Why? Because it's going to be helpful to you get an interview. There is nothing in that that's going to teach you anything of value. Nothing, zero. In Greece, we'd say dipota. In Yiddish, we'd say bupkas. It's nothing in there that's valid. So is it worth completing the labs? I wouldn't. What would I do instead, James? I'd be focusing on learning, security, 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 and more security. And here's the thing. So let's pretend I got a hammer in my hand, right? Now, if you've got a building architect, what do? They design a building, right? They need to know how tall the building's going to be, what the building needs to look like. Does the building need to withstand hurricanes or earthquakes? That's what the building architect needs to know. Material strength, design, that's their job. Now, if you hand the building architect a hammer and say, here, I'm going to teach you construction, and then you hand him a screwdriver and teach you how to use it, and then a saw, and then a cement mixer, and that's your training, do you think that's going to teach that person how to design the building? No, not even 1%. Is it worth completing the labs? I don't know. I mean, truth be told, I have my students do some labs. Why? So that when someone asks you, have you done it? I can say yes. But let's be fair. You're not going to be using WAF in a real cloud security architecture. You're going to be using a next generation firewall. You're not going to be using Macy and things. You're going to be using a next generation firewall. Not that the services aren't good. They're fine. But when people are coming to a cloud security architect, they want real security, enterprise-grade security, way, way, way outside of the cloud-native security tools. So James T., sure, you can do these labs, but make sure that you don't internalize them. Make sure you say, yep, I did it. And then focus on the real thing, which is, okay, now what do I really have to do? I got to go call Cisco and learn how their stuff works. I got to go call Palo Alto. So I'm never going to tell you not to configure, because it's always good to know how. But the question, James T., is how much time do you have? And this is where it gets really critical. If you only have 3 hours a day to study, only 3, your time is very valuable. As an architect, you're going to be earning $100, $150, $200 an hour, depending upon how senior you are in your architect career. So if you wasted 3 hours a day configuring, you can view that as $600 an hour, $600 of wasted time per day. Now, if your time was spent becoming a greater architect, improving your business acumen, your leadership skills, your sales skills, your executive presence, your ROI modeling, now that's going to boost your salary. If you were learning about next generation firewalls or IDS, IPS systems, or how to design them, that's going to build your salary. If you went to Zscaler and learned their solution of zero trust, you went to Aviatrix and learned their SASE solution, now you got offerings to offer to people. Versa Networks learned their thing. Checkpoint learned their things. Now you got something special. So knock out that silly AWS professional. But if it's the kind of lab that I see that are part of these ridiculous courses, like GitLab that I see one of the characters in Australia putting out there, don't waste your time on that, because you're learning somebody else's job. Focus on architect stuff. Now, if you want to go build a real security architecture like a cloud security engineer, fine. Get a network load balancer and 2 virtual firewalls from, say, Palo Alto. Get another network load balancer in front of another network generation firewall. Get another network load balancer in front of a couple of IDS IPS systems. Set up your access list, your security groups. Now take a Linux machine, secure it, patch it, put a host-based firewall on it, disable unnecessary services on it. Then while you're at it, set up an Active Directory server. Federate that with the AWS IAM platform. Now take your storage, encrypt your storage. Now these are kind of labs that'll build your security knowledge, but just don't do certification labs. It's a waste of your time. So make your lab training relevant. So James T., look, I have my students build a cloud from scratch. Architects don't touch the tech, but why is it a relevant lab? Because if you can build a cloud, if you know how to take and create Google or AWS or Azure, that's a valid lab. That builds competency, but keep it that. So make sure that you focus your time on the things that are going to make you a great architect, not a cloud admin. What will be the starting point for someone to pursue a cloud security, especially AWS? Study cloud security. So Kawaku, for example, Delray Bat was a student to me that wanted to become a cloud security architect. What did he do? He bought my course about a year ago. Now he's working as a cloud security architect. It's his first tech job. It's his job. We got him straight out of the program with no experience. The starting point is take a training program designed to teach you cloud security, determine whether you want to be a cloud security engineer or architect, get the right training and do it. It can be your first job. You don't need to start someplace else. And that's this weird perspective in technology. And that's where it comes from is as follows. If someone's only training is certification training, then they're not going to have the skills for any career. So what they have to do is apply to 500 jobs and then get a cloud admin job and work as an admin or help desk for 5 years and learn almost nothing. And then a couple of years later, they try and work hard and become an engineer. And then 10 years later, they become an architect. Or you just do it my way, which is just learn architecture from the scratch and be like my students that get hired every single day. So to me, the way to get started is as follows. Take a training program that's going to teach you what you need to focus on the whole career. The whole career. I get somebody hired almost every day of the week. Why? Because we teach the entire career. Nobody cares about your certifications. They care about your ability to do the job, your attitude, your energy, your enthusiasm. Can they trust you? Your integrity. Can you bring out the best in others? Are you willing to go above and beyond the team player? So master the skills for your job. Master them. Master them. Join me on Thursday on the How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar. And we can talk live on Zoom, and I'll tell you how to get your first cloud security architect job. It'll be a great job. We'll come back but really it's all about learn the skills for your job and get there. Somebody doesn't work as a flight attendant on the way to be an airplane pilot. They don't work as a nurse on their way to be a doctor. They don't work as a paralegal on their way to be a lawyer. They study for the career they want, and you can start at the top with the right training. I did. Almost every day one of my students does. So the key is, we do have to figure out what kind of cloud security you want to do, though, because I don't know whether you want to build it or configure it. And that's the thing we have to identify. Do you want to do offensive security, which is breaking into things so you can determine their vulnerabilities, which is a type of security? Do you want to do defensive security, which is securing it? Do you want to do defensive security as an architect where you design the solution? Or do you want to do the defensive security as an engineer where you configure the gear? So we have to identify the career. And then after we identify the career, then we have to tell you the skills that you need. And you're going to be great and have a fantastic career. And I want to help you. So let's make sure we answer that question. I don't know if I have enough time to get the second half of the question necessary from you. So if I don't, join me on Wednesday or join me on Thursday. And I want to help you because it's a great question. Chris, I think I can do one more. James T., you're reading our AWS book. Fantastic and well written. However, what's the best way to get out of reading a technical book? Don't just want to highlight. James, the way I read a book is as follows. Do the following. Read the book. Everything that you don't know, look up. And when you look it up, don't just Google it. Look at the quality of your source. If it's on a Medium blog, it may or may not be good. If it's from AWS, it's good. If it's from Cisco, it's good. If it's from IBM, it's good. If it's from Dell EMC, it's good. There's that. So look it up, and take paper notes. Paper notes. Why paper notes? Well, here's the thing. See, it all comes down to our brain, right? And when we look at something, read it, and write it down by hand, we activate a particular part of the brain called the reticular activating system, which helps commit things into memory. Normally, the reticular activating system is like we're driving down a car and we see the squirrel on the road and we wake up and we hit the brakes. That's what it's normally used for, but it's also involved in learning, specifically when we write. So take something, everything you don't know, go look it up and write stuff down, write handwritten notes. You're going to do fantastic, James, that way. Fantastic. Excellent, excellent question. So read through it, everything you don't know, look, make sure you're looking for credible sources along the way. Do you need to have a network certification or Linux before you get a cloud certification? You're learning web development right now. Well, Ken, what would you like to do? Because, for example, web development is not critical from us. For example, web development isn't useful in many cloud careers. Cloud architects don't do web development, for example. Cloud engineers don't do web development either. So learning web development, if you want a cloud career, is going to not be a useful career unless you want to be a web developer, which is not a cloud career. So keep that in the back of your mind. Nobody needs anything to get a cloud certification. So the big thing, Ken, is determine what do you want to do. For example, certifications will not build your career. If you want to be a cloud architect, I probably wouldn't get a Linux certification, and I probably also wouldn't do any web development. I'd learn cloud architecture things. If I wanted to be a cloud architect, I'd probably get a network certification like a CCNP because it shows that I understand some networking. But if I wanted to do cloud security, I wouldn't waste my time with a networking certification. I'd get a security certification. So Ken, you're mentioning certifications. Certifications are the icing on the cake. You need to have the cake. And the cake does not get accomplished by certification. The cake gets accomplished by training. So what kind of cake do you want to be? Do you want to be a chocolate cake, a vanilla cake, a strawberry cake? I need to know the cake, and then we can determine what kind of icing. That's all the icing is. So the cake is what job you want, and it's all the knowledge that it takes to be there. For example, a doctor's cake is not the MD license that's hanging on the wall. It's human anatomy, it's physiology, it's kinesiology, it's pharmacology, it's diagnostics. It's medical treatment. That's the doctor's cake. Yeah, there's a license, but that's just a piece of paper. The cake is what matters. So what career you want? What do you want to be? That's the first place to start. Learning web development for most careers is not useful at all, unless you want to design websites. Now, if you want to design websites, then it's a very useful skill. And that's the thing. We've got to figure out what skills you're learning. And that's why I'm here, Ken, because 90% of the people that start learning stuff, and they spend years learning stuff, and you're talking cloud certification. I don't know if you want to work on the cloud or you just want a cloud certification. But if you want to work on the cloud, unless you want to be a web developer, don't learn web development because it's going to waste your time. So I really want you to figure out what you want to be. And then we can figure out the skills that you need to learn. And then after you learn the skills, then you can just polish it up a little bit by getting the certifications. But you got to remember this. A certification is just a piece of paper. It will do nothing more for you than get you an interview. It won't teach you the skills that you need for any job, except for the Cisco Certified Internet Expert. But that'll cost you $40,000 to prepare for that exam. You'll read about 75,000 pages to pass the exam. And yeah, with a $40,000 investment, 6 to 12 months full time, at least 2,000 hours preparing on that exam, that will get you a certification. But that's because it's not a certification. That's a competency exam. They ask you to design something and build it. It's very, very different. And they ask you to design and build something that's not supposed to work to see if you have all the knowledge on how to fix their broken design. So that's why. So again, it comes back to this. And please come to my Wednesday one so we can dive deeper into this, or my Thursday webinar. I want to know what job you want. The job determines your training. A doctor trains a certain way. A neurosurgeon trains a different way. An orthopedic surgeon needs a different set of skills. Cloud architect needs a different set of skills than a cloud engineer who needs different set of skills than a Cissp person who needs different skills than a DevOps person who needs different skills than a big data person who needs different skills from a web developer who needs different skills from an app developer. So I want you to help you get there, but I need to know what you want. Certifications don't drive the training. The job decides the training. So there is that. Well, I can't stay later today. I wish I could. If you can give me a hashtag cloud hired, everybody, and let me remind you about a few things. On Thursday, we have our completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar. The link is in the description below. Please sign up, and I'd love to see you there. We release so much content on LinkedIn. If you don't follow us, please follow me on LinkedIn and follow Go Cloud Careers on LinkedIn. My team will give you the links to follow us. We are going to be providing an unbelievable amount of training soon, and we distribute much of that content through LinkedIn. So please do follow us. While we're at it, we're going to release a completely free book on passing the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam. My team is in the process of editing it right now. We're going to give it away completely free. So register. The link is in the chat box and the description below. And I will see you all coming very soon. And let's get everybody cloud hired. And if you want a cloud architect job, take our Cloud Architect Career Development Program and get cloud hired like so many of my students. You want to become a cloud engineer? Take our Cloud Engineer Career Development Program. And I look forward to seeing you in another video. Take care, everybody. Let's get you all cloud hired.